Hello and welcome to Season 2 of Super Pros Bros. I'm Player 2, Eli, and with me as always is...
Player 1, Ike, and Broskinkowski. Did you know that this podcast is on YouTube, SoundCloud, and Spotify?
I do not bromancer. Those are the same places that they could.
Like,
Comment,
share?
and subscribe?
It sure is.
Well, what do you know about that?
Well, all I know is I am back from Hotlanta, or in this case, Coldlanta, and with sadly less money in my pockets, but great memories to, keep tucked away.
What were you doing in Atlanta?
I was playing in a magical tournament of Gathering Friends, aka Magic the Gathering, to exorbitantly no acclaim. Just had the most piddling of finishes, considerably more losses than wins, which is not
Not the ideal ratio.
no. But got to see our cousin Zachary and a couple of friends from around different parts of California and the West Coast who I don't regularly see because they don't live in Los Angeles. Had some decent eats, some of which very much were overhyped. Also saw our friend Colton after he finished his first marathon. Congrats, Coco.
Just
Good on
casually
you.
rolled up to Atlanta.
Casual. Okay, so story time. Uh, our friend Captain Coco runs his first ever marathon, drives 2 hours to come see me, hangs out all day wearing flip-flops in like 35, 40 degree weather, hangs out, pals around with us like the whole entire day like it's nothing, even though his left foot was like cramped since like mile 13 in the marathon, and so he's walking around with like a freaking like hot claw as if he's like holding a mouse like the whole day, just club footing it.
just pimp limping it.
Yeah, we're at DreamHack, and they had on site, they had this like each plate, there's like different vendor booths and there's different like tournament areas for games, and in the kind of center of the area, the Air Force had all of the Last Starfighter set up this like basically this video game,
right?
that if you scored high enough, they would like offer you a contract to like sign up for the, like, this is the gist of what I got. Like, it's like if you do well, they're like, hey, would you like to blow up people with drones or fly airplanes for the Air Force? Could we interest you in like signing up to come to basic training? It's hilarious. And also later Colton informed me that after talking to a couple of the guys that were there that were actually from the Air Force, a lot of the women that were on site, like just kind of working the booth, were not in the Air Force. They were just cute singles in the area looking to ensnare men for their country. So we're there. They have a chin-up bar, and Colton, being the ever exhibitionist, I kind of very easily convinced him, like, dude, you've got this clubfoot going on. You're not in uniform. You should, like, kind of fuck with them. Just go up there and, just, like, kind of, like, ham up your limp and then destroy that chin-up bar. So he very easily convinced. He goes, okay. And just kind of trots over and he goes, oh, what's this? Blah, 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 blah. And does not at any point denote that he is in the service.
He's a fucking Marine. Yeah.
Yeah, that he's, a captain in the Marine Corps. And they're like, oh, yeah, this. He goes, oh, can I try? Oh, okay. And so he gets up there and starts, I don't know if you saw the video, but I believe I sent it to you.
Just
of him
casually cranking out pull-ups.
crushing it after running 26 miles and driving 2 hours. Also, I don't know if I said this, he got second in his first ever marathon.
Yeah, he ran it an hour faster than the average person finishes a marathon, by the way.
Gee, I didn't know his time was that good. Holy crap.
His hour, I think he said like it's 3:26.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the average is like 4:03.
Good lord.
Something. Yeah,
Kudos, chum. Kudos.
Yeah,
So,
dude's a monster. Has
yeah.
been for years.
Yeah, well, last time I've seen him since before he went to Oman, and he was in very good shape. When he came back, he's cut now. He is like chiseled from iron. It is like, I had appreciation for him physicality wise, like for a while, but I was like, he came back, I was like, damn.
I feel like he's been like that since he went to the academy. But
I mean, he hug him next time you see him and tell me if you feel the same way. It's a different kind of marble he's made out of. Anyway, so he does that, goes up there. He's cranking it so hard that initially it's a freeform platform that's got a decent base, but he's like putting so much oomph in the woomph that like the guy that's standing there holds onto it to give it some like stability. And then that's not enough, so he calls him another guy to hold the other side. Hulk Hogan is just like, yeah, just giving it the business. I think he set it wasn't like some high record, but he set the record for the day or matched it, even though they discounted a bunch of his because he was going to chin touching the bar, not chin over the bar, which he didn't know until like after 10 that were like not meeting their criteria. He's like, okay, and just like goes back to doing it their way with an eye roll, all the while just like putting on a show. Gets down and he's fucking about with the guy. He's fucking about with the guy like he's an ensign or like a lieutenant or something like that. Somebody of not, high, it's an enlistment thing. Why would they send out somebody with any amount of, glitter on their uniform, if you will?
Yeah.
And then the guy's got a lanyard saying, what booth he is, so he can like walk in, not have to pay, do the whole wristband thing, and like probably through a different entrance. And then the guy like took a step or just like kind of idled his standing position, and Colton said the lanyard moved and he saw all the bars and was like, fuck, because he had been like ribbing him and thought he was, of a lower station than him, so didn't need to like pay too much deference. He wasn't treating him like shit or anything like that, but definitely wasn't giving him
going a bit beyond the usual what you would be allowed to get away with.
Oh, by a lot. Very much kind of fucking with him. And then that moves, he sees that he's a lieutenant, instead of a lieutenant, he sees that he's a lieutenant colonel. He's like, shit. And he started peppering in the word sir aggressively, because that is the same rank as his boss. He's like, sir, yes, sir, okay, sir. And then just like immediately like comes, kind of like puts his hand under my bicep and goes, we should walk in a different direction. I was like, wait, what's up? He goes, I have been not showing the deference that needed for a man in such a position. I don't want him to realize where I'm from or what branch I'm in. I'm just gonna scooted us away.
Shit. Come the fuck up.
Yeah. Also, flew there and back on Spirit. Never will make that mistake again. Spirit Airlines can go fuck themselves. All they did is try to remove the spirit from my body on the trip. That airline is just hot garbage.
Oh,
Literally.
There goes our sponsorship deal. God damn it.
Dang it. And here we were getting a sponsorship from the worst airline. So on my way there, this is no fault of their own, but the person I'm sitting next to has too much booty for their seat to the point where they are sitting all over one of my thighs, and not intentionally. They are firmly sitting in their seat, but they got so much rumpus that it's just like I was getting an accidental lap dance like the whole ride. Just like, all right, well, I know these seats are small, but I think you should have buttoned too. Not in any way, kind of shaming them, but damn, girl, you thick. And between that and the fact that I didn't realize how shite their seats were, I literally had a Charlie horse for like 3 days on just my right cheek. I was just walking around like somebody just blasted me with a cannon or a paintball gun just up close. I'm like, like sitting down was painful. It was the thing. Luckily learned my lesson, and on the ride back I sat down on my hoodie so that I had a little bit more padding, but still a bit uncomfortable. However, on the way back also had big booty problems. This one they could, and should is a strong word. So the aisles are so small, and the stewardess's caboose was so great that she literally was committing sexual assault crimes going up and down the aisle, just in nature of asking people if they wanted a hot towel or pay $7 for a bottle of water. She's just walking down the aisle and just booty clapping everybody that was fortunate or unfortunate, depending how you want to look at it, sitting in the aisle, just like literally just like Ass
all,
clapping
all I
all
can,
the residents that were lucky enough to get an aisle seat.
all I can fucking think is the episode where in Brooklyn Nine-Nine
Mm.
where, um, oh my god, I have, how, what's happening to me? Help. The guy who's always fucking, he's the butt of every joke in that show.
Boyle?
Boyle, thank you. Jesus.
Mm.
Where he's like actually confident. He's like,
Oh,
sexy
yeah.
train's leaving the station, y'all. Check out this caboose.
It's when he's on like the painkillers after he gets like shot, right?
No, it's like what he's like has his girlfriend basically.
Oh, okay.
No, what he's painkillers, when he's just brutally honest to everyone. He
Oh,
just
right,
doesn't
right,
give a
right.
fuck.
Well, anyway, that's what's been going on in my sector of reality. What about you?
Oh, my life has not been nearly so fun. It has mostly been dealing with fun kind of financial fallout and emotional fallout on behalf of my wife from casual racism.
It's casual. You do it on a Sunday.
Yeah, do it. Yeah, she was wrongfully fired and has been pursuing legal damages, and yeah, basically got informed that one of the reasons she's been stiffed for unemployment is that she was not quote unquote terminated from her last job position, but instead abandoned her last position,
Grown.
which is in a complete fucking
Yeah.
denial of what her boss told her. And like her boss is lying 6 days from Sunday, and it's probably, if it comes out in a courtroom, it probably looks really, really bad for him.
Fingers crossed.
But in the immediate, it's really, really frustrating.
Yeah.
Because like it's probably kind of a strike on her record in terms of getting new employment. It's
Yeah.
absolutely causing complications with her benefiting from unemployment, which she's absolutely due for, and
Yeah.
it's just a swift kick in the nuts that I don't understand, because I am white. I do not understand the plight of racism. I do not understand that if like it's
Didn't understand
not,
that was a thing either. That you could like that they could. That's like so shady to be like, oh, we didn't fire her, she quit.
yes,
It's
that's-
basically what they're saying, right?
yes, exactly. That is
Yeah.
exactly what they're saying, despite him saying that you're no longer welcome on the property. It's
A little hard to do the job when
a
you
little hard
can't
to
be on the
fucking work
res-
retail remote.
Yeah.
Like,
Standing out in the corner. All right, so
fucking,
what
like,
you're going to
crowd
do is,
barking, like,
yeah, just shouting into the store from the street front. Like, is that what he expected?
yeah. So, and like he did ask you to say that he hadn't been in contact with her prior to that. It's like, bitch, we have a literal text chain between you two. What are you talking about? Couldn't get a hold of.
Yeah.
Like it's fucking outrageous. So yeah, I am hoping that comes to be a $50,000 mistake he made.
I hope it goes to more than that, but
I do too. But I'm not. Listen, any kind of a
Yeah.
5-digit amount, I would be very, very happy to just give the big monetary middle finger. Be like,
Yeah.
don't be an asshole.
exactly.
Yeah, but it did lead to Artemis and I having a very bizarre conversation that I never thought I'd hear anybody say is, I miss racists. I didn't say this, for the record. This was not me. I would not say such a fucking thing. But she appreciates the honesty and integrity of someone who will just call her the N-word, because she knows where she stands.
Yeah.
Just
It's a pretty good barometer for, oh, do not be in a room with that person alone.
Also, that person doesn't care if you call them a racist.
Yeah.
The all of this kicked off because her boss assumed she called out a behavior he did. She did not call him racist. She's very conscientious that white people freak the fuck out if you call them
Yeah.
racist. I don't mean to stereotype. However, if the boot fits, and it does in this situation,
The
she's like,
cowboy
"No, I'm not
fit. The
fucking saying
cowboy
that."
boot fits.
Yeah, so she didn't say that, but he assumed she said it, and that got her fired. Yes. Yeah. Lot of that.
Are you open to disclosing what the activity was for those of us that are white and stupid, so that we may not repeat and belie such shitty activity?
He gave preferential treatment to a white guy over her. Just like he basically had the stupidity and gall to say, "Wow, being a black woman is hard." It is, sociologically speaking. There's a lot of bullshit that just kind of comes with if you look at larger trends. Glass ceiling is an oppressive bitch, and So he basically had the kind of woke confidence to say, "Wow, that sucks," but also, and pretty much tell her like, "There's no real room for advancement for you at this place." It then came out like she learned later that other people who were getting hired on were getting paid as much, if not more, than her, despite her working there 3 years doing the same position. And she learned that they were functionally making nonsense positions because they wanted to keep one guy on staff so they could make an excuse to pay him more.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, but she had her hours cut because people thought she couldn't hack it, essentially. Because she felt very fucking maligned and kind of jerked around, which I think is reasonable.
Yeah, that seems very fair and apt.
Yeah, and so she told people like, this feels kind of bullshit. Like, you know, like to say, it's rough to be a black woman and then just like harshly impose a glass ceiling on me is
it's
pretty
rough
bullshit.
to do this because I'm going to make it rough on you.
Yeah, like she felt pretty jaded about it. And so like when she basically just regurgitated what had happened to her from her side of things. It's like, this feels pretty shitty. And I think most people, like everyone agreed. It's like, yeah, this is pretty garbage.
Yeah. That sounds like poop.
Yeah, that's like, that might be a racist thing he's doing. She did not call him racist.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, so just that. So much fun.
Well, speaking of fun, have you been doing any writing as of recently?
I have mostly been, when I can get myself to do it, editing. Which is what we're going to talk about today.
Nice. Well,
Seamless segue.
Yeah.
10 out of 10.
So, I guess what we're going to be talking about today is tips, tricks, and just the overall
Editing process.
Yeah. Not like a how-to necessarily.
No, we're not experts. Jesus Christ, there are actual editors you could pay for that could actually tell you what the fuck to do.
Yeah. Would recommend. We're talking about editing when you are, like us, relatively broke. And how we've found ways to, like, what we found to be helpful and bits of information and, like, pitfalls and just our growth and experience thereof.
Anecdotally, if you're ever... I'm not going to say if you're ever young writing, but, like, writing young, it felt like editorial work was this... something you could pretty easily ego your way out of doing.
Mm-hmm.
Anecdotally. And, that don't work. Putting it very bluntly.
Yeah.
And I think, and as someone who absolutely egoed his way out of doing a lot of proper editing and good revision on my attempted first novel, it doesn't pay out. And one of the best pieces of advice I probably heard, and is good to keep in mind, is that writing is for you, and editing is for everyone else. Because you know what you're supposed to have written. Like, you can see the outcome of what you want. Like, you can see what should be happening. You know what words should be hitting the page, what it should look like.
Because it's all in your head, right?
That is all in your head. That does not necessarily translate. One of the first things that I got absolutely bodied with when I had someone help me do like just basic beta reading and editing was she pointed out, she's like, yeah, this whole string of a fist fight you have going on, I don't follow it.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you talking about? Like, she's
it's
like, you
so
might know,
obvious.
She's like, you might know how fights work. I don't. I have never stood in the ring. I have never boxed. I've never done anything. You clearly have. I can tell that. I can't follow it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh.
There's this great bit that I think is kind of emblematic of what we're getting to here from a troublesome source, but I think a great well of information, which is Louis C.K. had this bit where he's talking about if somebody calls you an asshole, you're an asshole. And there's no equivocating that. It's your opinion that you're not, but you're not the person viewing yourself. So if somebody who's viewing you says you're an asshole, to them, which is...
You're an asshole.
You're an asshole. And you can try to remedy that, but you can't say that you're not because that's the way they're viewing it. Just like if somebody says, I don't get it, that means they don't get it. That you don't get to be like, oh, you're wrong. No, they don't get it.
Yeah.
They might be an outlier, but if, we can only do, since we can't, one, this is why you choose your editors wisely and you don't go to like random people you don't know and be like, read this, please. You do want them to be like a source that you respect, or at least, can pay some amount of deference. But since you can't survey a million people, you do have to kind of take it with a grain of salt, obviously, but also just take and use the information you get. You can't like look at it and be like, boy, you don't know what you're talking about. This is the fastest way to end up in like your own echo chamber.
Yeah. It is not easy to accept criticism, like by any stretch, or to hear that you might be wrong about things, or that things clearly need to change because they're not working out for people reading it.
Yeah.
Like, because writing in whatever medium is a form of it's artistic expression. It's like if you drew something, because I can't fucking draw, but like
Next two of us.
yeah, but like if you painted something, drew something, and people are like, well, it looks like shit, you'd be like, okay, fuck yourself. Like the snap response is like, that fucking hurts.
Yeah.
Like it's a similar kind of thing, like different medium, but.
And if you don't, I think this is a really good spot to point out that if you don't want to change what you write, this is something that it is kind of like a fork. If you don't want to change something for other people, that is fine. However, that is the difference between somebody who writes a blog or writes for self-pleasure and somebody that wants to get published. Yeah. If you want to get published, I think this is probably the crux of where we should start, and I think it's kind of inherent, but if you want to get published, it needs to, like, the whole point, and this is where I think we kind of differ from a lot of avant-garde artists, and we look at the idea of like, well, you just didn't get it, and that's because you did it wrong. The whole point of writing and like creating for publication is that more people will get it than not, preferably by like a large percentage.
Yeah, like I think this same goes for you, but like if there's ever something you have to tell me watch it twice to get it, I'm never watching it. It's never happening.
Yeah, there's a difference between, and I think this is like some people will like, oh, to really get it you have to watch it a second time. That's different than to get it you have to watch it a second time.
Yeah, you gain a deeper appreciation. Yeah. That's one thing. Like you'll notice little hidden details that add flavor. That's different. Like Fight Club is a good example of that.
I was gonna exactly go there.
Like if you know the twist in Fight Club and you go back to watch, you see some little spots where continuity doesn't quite stack up. It's like but that is not the same as you need to watch it twice to fucking unscramble the mess that's been dropped in your lap.
Yeah. I remember I was for a Magic tournament. I was in Louisville, Kentucky, and ended up couch surfing through an odd circumstance, and was staying on this like beatniks couch in this very Fight Club-esque shamble of what used to be considered a house. I wouldn't consider it a house. It almost looked like a squatter's paradise, but it was not a house anymore. There's something between the ceiling and the roof, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and this guy's there wasn't. I was like looking up at the roof, which is why I think I got sick. I think I was just like inhaling like asbestos or something like that.
Probably not asbestos, but
yeah, something bad, because I was sick for like a week after, drastically.
Asbestos would be cancer.
Yeah, well, hopefully the ones with asbestos. Either which way, on the last night I was there, he had some friends over who were, I love beatniks for their open-mindedness. I love it for their coffee and sometimes their food. I had some great eats while I was there because this guy showed me some dope places in Louisville, Kentucky. Will always owe him for that. The places I went to eat were just top tier. However, last night I was there, they had this viewing party in his room, just like put it up on a little projector, and this movie, complete gibberish in every direction. And I was just like, that's the movie. Like, it ended. I was like, that's the movie? Like, what the fuck? That made no sense. And somebody's like, well, you gotta watch it like 7 times. All right, one, go fuck yourself. Two, the movie's like was like 2.5, 3 hours. It's like,
21
again, fuck
hours,
yourself.
baby.
Yeah, 21 hours so you can get this like fucking shamble. Like, no. Like, that is bad filmmaking. If that is a necessary thing for your viewer to do it that many times, which, I mean, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but this is why, you know, the edit is so that everyone can get it. You need this to be digestible. That's the whole point of producing something, is that so that it can be introduced to your system and to your mental state. Which conveniently ties into my point, or one of the editing lessons I learned. It took 2 writing classes while I was at California State University, Monterey Bay. The first one was taught by a man named JP, who is old school independent filmmaker. I think it's Coffee. Well, I need to look up his site because he has. It's crap. I'll look it up and put it in the thing. But he's teacher at CSUMB. It's Coffee and something or other. But he's been making his own movies for ages. The guy is old school, nitty gritty filmmaker. Mad respect. Writes his own stuff, makes his own stuff. The man practices what he preaches, and even though it is at times, depending upon what kind of film you're trying to make, is a little dated, it is very honest, it is very true, and he is like not talking out of his ass, which I really respect and appreciated.
Yeah.
The thing that he taught me that changed my life and gave me, I still don't know if I'll ever make it. I don't know if this is going to be me in 5 years, but what has given me a chance in hell was this lesson, which was try every edit option once. If somebody gives you an idea, like, because I was in a class of people, it was their first film writing course. Some of them sucked. I hope they don't suck as much now, but some of them sucked. One of them wrote, their story was an 8-page thing that was borderline monologue about the job that he was recommending this guy for at like a pub. Like, a merc comes in to do a job and he tells him about the job for 8 pages. Not kidding. It's just like there's nothing happening. There was like literally nothing happening. It's a guy just talking to another guy about nothing. The dialogue was okay, but at 8 pages of one guy just describing the job, that wouldn't be tenable in real life as like a job to pick up, let alone a conversation to overhear. So I mean, that's what we're working with. And that guy had an idea for me, and initially I was like, "You're stupid." Which is not a nice thing to think or say, and is very reductive, as a contemporary of mine has noted. And it, like, immediately I just, like, discounted anything he had to say. Well, that's bad for a million reasons. Again, echo chamber from a earlier thing. But once I accepted that I didn't know everything, and that people, like you were saying, you know, you had a fight scene and your friend just didn't get it. They're like, look, I understand that you know what you're talking about, but as I don't, I couldn't understand it. It makes this, you know, just lost on me.
It's nothing.
Yeah. Had the same kind of thing where I was describing the scene. It all made sense in my brain. I know. Some of the reason it made sense, but didn't make sense to the people, is I just left out words, which makes it real easy reading. And the other part is just like, I very much understood the direction it was coming from, and it wasn't being delivered that way. Some of it was, you know, preference, like, that doesn't make sense to me, that doesn't feel right, that doesn't make sense. And part of it was just, you know, I was very much stuck for my position. I'm not an asshole. And they're like, no, you're being an asshole. I was like, and I couldn't see that. Once you open yourself up to the reality that, 1, you're not right, and 2, other people, and treat other people as if they are authority figures almost, and just try everything they do like they recommend at least once, whether it ends up being a bad idea, whether it ends up being a good idea, it doesn't matter. When you open yourself up to that, you open yourself up to unlimited potential, has been my finding of just like, because if you do it, 1, you're paying deference to the people, which makes the people that are helping you in your editing process feel valued. It's very important.
Yeah.
Because especially in our position, you need to be able to go back to that well more than once, because you're going to have different drafts, you're going to have different stories. If you, like, to the bigger cultivated editing audience, the more chance that your story is going to be good, because, like we were saying earlier, you can't, give it to the world. We don't have that kind of time. We don't have that kind of outreach. So the more people you include in your bubble, the better. So you can go back to that well over and over again, so they feel valued. The other one is, a lot of the times other people are right, like more than you'd like to believe, and definitely more than 50%.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's one thing I will say, especially finding a non-professional editor where money is not a factor.
Mm-hmm.
Find somebody. Do not just find a generic friend. They're too
Yep.
nice.
Yes.
Like, find somebody who will just straight be like, bruh, it fucking sucks.
Yeah.
Like, find somebody who can just straight face tell you something is bad.
Usually that's a good friend, but occasionally there's
Like,
people
there's
me.
people who can be cunts about it. I've had one person be an absolute cunt about it and tell me the
Hi.
first chapter of something I wrote was unreadable. I was like, wow.
Yep.
Ow. Okay. That was the exception, not the rule. But there is someone hedging their bets about criticism is not what you need.
No.
You need somebody to just be blunt.
Yeah, it's better to get stabbed than to get patted. Because you
Yeah.
learn nothing from getting patted. You learn everything from getting stabbed.
Now, what I will say is those if you have genuine people and like, I'm gonna use Colton for this actually because he was one of the people who's helped do reading for me. Is he did point out things that really stuck out to him that he really liked,
Mm-hmm.
and then also is like, yeah, but there's some other stuff that needs help. Like, I've had to rewrite a lot of dialogue for my main character because he kind of sucked, and he got likened. Hop likened him to the newer Batman movie. He's like, he
Robert
kicks ass.
Pattinson? Or...
Yeah, with Robert Pattinson. He's like, he kicks ass if he's fighting, but every time that Robert Pattinson is not in costume, like in outfit as Batman,
Mm-hmm.
he kind of sucks. Like, it's like, when he's duking it out, great movie.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of the suit, kind of shit. It's like, that's what you're doing with your main character. I'm like, oh, damn it.
But I mean, one of the things you're pointing out there, I think, is like really important in that you need to have somebody and this is one of the things that I think, for those of you that are ever interested in editing, this is going to be like the one aside for if you're editing for a friend or for somebody. And one of the things I learned in class was that the best way to give editing where it's easier to hear is that you give a compliment, you give criticism, and then you give a compliment. It's called a compliment sandwich. Doesn't matter how much criticism in the middle. If you can say something nice at the beginning and nice at the end, it's kind of like coating medicine in peanut butter for a dog. It's the same thing as the writer. So for those of you that ever edit for a friend or give criticism for a friend, highly recommend when giving your report to start nice. You can have other niceties in there. And sometimes it's just great. There was somebody's project that I remember seeing in my last semester. They're like, all right, do you have any advice? And I was like, fucking nailed it. I don't know. It's just like perfect all the way. Like, you did an amazing job and there was nothing else to say. That's very rare for the record. But if you do nice criticism, pepper in some nice, and then end, with nice, it makes it so much easier to hear. They'll want you back and they'll like be able to listen to it more. When it is just like shitters all the way down, even as somebody who has kind of gotten used to being told like you need to work on it, it's still hard to hear when there's no, high five or hug in there and any,
yeah, hearing everything just hearing it's all garbage is demoralizing.
Yeah.
Like it fucking sucks the wind out of your sails faster than you can say goddamn. Like anybody who's asking you to do editorial work for them, their ego is fragile. It is made of glass. It takes very little to fucking obliterate it. Like, I'm gonna just call a spade a spade. Most of the people do not.
Very
have the
rarely
thickest
are
skins.
artists soldiers as well.
No, and most people, especially if we're trying it for the first time, they have not developed a thick enough skin.
No.
They're gonna need it.
Yeah.
It's not there yet.
Nope. Raise his hand in the void.
Yeah, and that's the other thing for anybody who's receiving editing. fucking put on a coat. Like,
Yeah.
you gotta take it. Like, there's some stuff you just gotta shut up and take it.
Yep.
And you gotta and if you ask people to help make it better, they've gotta cut some out. They've gotta cut it down. Like,
There's this really hokey thing that I've seen. It's a thing from, I can't believe I'm going there, but you just reminded me of it. There's a show called Project Runway that I am not into fashion at all, but for whatever reason, a summer, I think I watched like 3 seasons of it back to back to back on Bravo
I
or
actually
something.
remember this. You were watching
Yeah.
a lot of Project Runway, and I couldn't explain why.
Yeah, I don't know either. But there's this scene, I think it's like season 4 or 5, where, you know, they're trying something because it's a dumb freaking, you know, reality show. They're trying this competition, and this guy does something that one of the one of the judges thinks is crap. And probably is. Who cares? Who knows?
Sure.
And they go, you did this wrong, you did this wrong, you did this wrong. And they're like, thank you. And they're like, that wasn't a compliment. They're like, I didn't take it as one. It's just like, oh, burn. It's like, no, the person that said that, the guy that's responding, gets that just like pile of shit plate and goes, thank you for the plate. That is the right response, and that is the response that you want to take into it.
Yeah.
Her being a cunt about like, oh, well, you know, it wasn't a compliment. It's like, yeah, nobody thought that was a compliment, lady. He's just being a professional. Why you're not is flabbergasting because she's been in the biz forever.
That's
But,
because
like,
we're on camera. But that's
yeah, most likely. But that is the way to take that, and that is the mindset. It took me every single semester to get there. I think it was only until the final semester that I was at film school where I finally got that you're, regardless, again, as, you know, as somebody who is receiving you know, editing critiques, you need to always appreciate what you get, even if it's the hardest pill to swallow. And that's, again, how you get your editors to come back and feel appreciated. And it's also, you open yourself up. The more you can just start with, it's kind of one of those fake it till you make it things.
Yeah.
It in basketball, again, weird analogy, I don't know where I'm going here, but stay with me. In basketball, somebody did math, and they noticed that when people take a free throw shot, if their teammates like pat them on the back, high five them, fist bump, whatever, their shot percentage goes up. It doesn't even matter if it's that emphatic. It literally is the physical touch. They've noticed, like, just like tapping fingertips, like, you know, barely reaching and getting that high five, not getting that full throttle high five. It literally changes their shot percentage. Even the best players that don't get that, it diminished their percentage versus when they do. Somebody did oodles of math calculations and, you know, just data gathering. It's fantastic. And it's the same kind of thing. The second you go, thank you for that, you're opening up, subconsciously, you're opening up your brain to being like, this is a gift from me. I can appreciate it now because I've said thank you. So, like, it changes the way you're collecting that data. You're collating it and putting it into a different box than worthless crap that, you know, I need to hide myself from, which is the, you know, with the way we protect ourselves as individuals in the world. When somebody's an asshole, you're like, they're an asshole. Their ideas doesn't matter. It still cuts for people differently, but you put it in this different category in your brain of, now I don't have to feel this pain.
Yeah.
But if you're doing this the other way, it's going to hurt a little bit more, but for your product, you are going to receive it better, use it better, and your product's going to be better for it.
Yeah.
And since I've got the microphone, DJ, drop that beat. I don't know. It got really serious. I need to cut the tension. So the other thing I learned while at university that kind of goes back to this try everything once. And interestingly, it dovetails considering they were different professors who were very much from different ways. JP very much worked in the independent scene. Luis, who I believe his last name is, it's spelled camera, which is hilarious that he taught film. And his last name was Camera. It's like he was destined for this, but I think it's pronounced differently, but it's still hilarious. Fantastic professor. Love him to death. He had this very smart thing where each time you work on an edit, you save it in a different file. Writing is small potatoes compared to anything else. You know, the amount of space it takes up is so small. So you can have a million iterations and it's still less than a movie.
Yeah.
And he recommended you save each draft as differently, so you're less scared of like, well, I don't want to take away this part because I'll forget about it. So if you save it each time, that way it opens you up to trying out this potential, like this thing that you're initially looking at as a dumb idea. You're like, all right, this person's a moron, but I, you know, to pay them deference, I'm going to try this.
Yeah.
And when you save it in different file, you can even save it under silly names, you know, stupid idea number 18 or whatever like that, or silly notion number 7, you try that and it opens you up to trying it differently, and that way you have this freedom of, well, I'm not ruining anything.
Yeah.
And that's very important. I don't know, at least for me, I don't know about you, bro, but for me, when I start working on something, if it's like a wonky idea, it's really hard if I'm working on something that I care about, that I'm not saving under a different file, versus if I am, so that I can just like throw caution in the wind and just go for this ludicrous idea.
I do that very little. Like, mostly because I use a lot of Google Doc. Um, but I have done that with, like, small, like, if I'm doing short stories, I've done it a couple times. I've done, like, drastic rewrites of something. Or just hard changed it. I think that's more a problem, the fact that I refuse to just buy Microsoft Word. Or just make duplicates. I know.
Alright, there's either an intruder or my room makes awake.
Because his dog is very angry.
No, his dog is very stupid. That or I'm about to die.
Listen, I mean, it could be both.
Why not both?
Why not both? Why not Zoidberg? The other piece of writing or editing advice that I'll want to add is something from Stephen King in his recommendation. And this is very true, especially if you're new writing. You need to have less on page.
Yep.
And what I mean is that you're not fucking Tolkien.
Nor should you esteem to be.
Nor should you necessarily aspire to be. However, there is something to be said about printing costs. And most people will not take on a new author if you exceed page limits or word count limits. Because the printing costs keep going up the longer your fucking book is.
I mean, also, like the flip side of this is, if you look at the most successful films, by and large, there's obviously, like, financially successful films.
Sure.
They're in a sweet spot between, I believe, 90 minutes and, like, 210.
Yeah.
Like, 2 hours, 10 minutes. It's like that range is, like, somewhere between you fit enough fulfilling of a story, and that's the bandwidth that your average viewer has to watch. 90 minutes was, for Disney, like, fucking money. And I think the 90s, like, 80s. That was just like,
shame.
Yeah, it's kind of like in a different way. I think it's Blumhouse. I think has like they've also done a thing in a different direction where it's they have, all right, this is the money that we can do ROI on. I think it's like $11 million. I think they did Get Out on that. I want to say that was them. That they're like, look, it's this budget that always works. Like, even if it's mid, it always works. So, like, this is the budget you have to work with. And they give it to basically everybody when it comes to making horror films. It's like, it's 11 million. They're like, it's a very good safety net. It allows them to do a lot of films because it's like, if we're wrong, we're probably still going to make back our money. If we're right, we're going to make a lot. Yeah.
Cha-ching.
Yeah. And same thing, kind of like what Stephen King's talking about, or the way I'm seeing it is just like, look, if you want to get, again, this is all about commercialism. If you want to get your thing made, it needs to fit the sweet spot so you up your chance of getting it made. It's just like
that's
getting something greenlit versus PG-13 which is R. It's so hard to get something greenlit that's R if you're not already a name, because R doesn't move that many units. PG-13 moves units.
Yeah. The other thing too is, like, if you'll go through, there's so much fucking fluff. Like, you, especially writing novels and shit, you just add so much garbage. You add just garbage, or you can put things succinct. Like, one of the things that took me so long to learn when I was writing my web serial is that less is more. Like, you have to be willing to give your readers room to do imaginative shit. I mean, that's very different with, like, screenwriting, because you have to actually make the flashing lights coincide with what you want to happen. Like, fine. But, especially with novel writing, is you can just take advantage of people filling the gaps. That's fine. Like, you can let people just fill shit out. Like, one of the things I was really bad about initially was I was very prescriptive with writing fight scenes. That's a lot of word count. Like, if you were to fucking annotate every single punch in a boxing match, you're writing a thesis paper. Yeah. It's outrageous. So it became
also monotonously boring.
It's monotonous. Like, listen, I will jerk myself off in writing over one thing. It's I write a fight scene really fucking well.
Mm-hmm.
God, it was monotonous. It wasn't good. It really wasn't. I had to work to make it good because one of the first big fight scenes I did for my web serial, it was fucking 10,000 words for the chapter. It was outrageous.
Jeez.
It was huge.
10,000 words is
That's 20.
average how many pages?
That's 20 single-space pages on a Microsoft Word document.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. It was long. It wasn't bad. It didn't need to be that. It could have easily been 8.
Yeah.
Like, I could easily cut to 10 to 15%, no fucking problem, and lose 0 effect. All I do is limit page time and unnecessary garbage. There's just more chance of losing people along the way because I wanted to be verbose as fuck. It's unnecessary. Don't do it.
Get some help.
Get some help. And that is again, especially if you want to actually, like, meet word counts for publishing companies. Like, when they say there's a hard cap on 100,000 words, yeah, you send 102,000, bye.
Yep.
Like, you first things first, meet the fucking requirements.
Yep.
Like, don't fucking ego and think you don't need to cut words. Cut some shit.
So
You're gonna be better for it.
yeah, story time. That is a great rubric that has been used by creators and by distributors. Is like, here's an expectation. If you don't meet it, like, doesn't matter how good your thing is, get scooted.
Yeah.
You know?
Operate with the expectation that if you do not meet it to the letter, you will not be considered, because that's probably what's going to happen.
So, on the flip side of this, do you know the quirky story behind Good Will Hunting?
Maybe, but not offhand. I don't know where to go with this.
I don't know this for 100% true, but I really hope it is. And from the sources I've seen, I am inclined to believe it.
Yeah.
Matt Damon and Ben Affleck write Good Will Hunting, and they start passing it around. And very intelligently, when they started picking up traction and they were going to start handing it to studios, this is their baby. And I think this is one of those things that you should be wary of and don't consider yourself too high-minded, but it really worked for them, is they knew they had a big hit on their hands and they wanted it to be done right. So what they supposedly did was inserted a sex scene between the two characters that were going to be played by Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. This random gay sex scene. They put it in the middle of the film, and they gave it to people and waited for feedback. And almost everybody didn't say anything about it. And they're like, oh, yeah, it's good. We're interested, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, okay, cool. Nope. Because they knew that...
They didn't read it.
They didn't read it. And they went around and did that. And, like, the first company, I think, that hit them back was like, yo, why is this? They're like, cool, let's work with these people. You know, assuming they don't try to, like, fuck us or change it too much. Which I think was Miramax or something like that.
But they at least read it.
Yeah, they at least read it, which was very important to them. As opposed to just being like, yeah, like, giving them, like, lip service. The other one that is kind of like that is, oh, damn. Now I don't remember the name of this band, but there's a band that is famous for asking, do you know what a writer is?
No.
So a writer, it's used in other things, but especially in music for bands, they have a writer where they go, hey, we want this, this, and this backstage. Or these are our demands to perform at your venue.
Oh, I think I know where you're going. The M&Ms? Is that what we're going with? Shit. I've heard this.
I want to say it's like Megadeth, but I don't even know if that's true.
That doesn't sound right. I think it's
Okay.
like Metallica.
Okay. It was some decently big band. And they had this writer where it was only brown M&Ms. And everybody's like, wow, that's really pretentious of them. Turns out it's not. It kind of like the McDonald's story of like the lady...
Van Halen.
Van Halen.
Sorry.
Respect. So...
And there could be no brown M&Ms.
Oh, there could be no brown M&Ms? Okay.
No brown
either
M&Ms.
which way, it was something visual. And the reason they did it was because they had multiple either crew members or bandmates that had strong allergies. And it was a way they could walk in and see if the writer had been met visually, if they had read it. Because it is a very random thing, and it is time-consuming to get a bowl of M&Ms and remove all the brown ones.
Yeah.
So to be able to look in there and go, cool, there's no brown ones, okay, we're safe to perform. Because they didn't want to put their bandmates and roadies at, in a dangerous situation if the place hadn't met code, if they clearly didn't care about them and potentially had stuff that they were allergic to that, like, the bandmates or roadies might get sick on. So that's why they they did that. And it's a very smart way of thinking like that. But I mean, it's the same kind of thing when you're talking about word count. It's just like knowing to meet instruction, knowing if the person's trustworthy, knowing if they can follow, the rubric that you've set out is like a good sign of whether you want to have them as a writer in your stable, metaphorically. It's like, because if they're not going to do that, there's going to be problems. Like that is a very good, red light's not the right word. Damn it. It's a really good red flag of, there's going to be problems down the road.
For sure. Sorry.
No, I just kind of took over the mic there, my bad. Do we have anything else to say on the editing process, or do we think we hit all the major notes?
Do one more read through than you think you need to. It can always be better. You're never going to make it perfect, but you should try. Yeah, that's basically all the notes. Like, we're not professionals at it, but those are some of, like, the basic...
Yeah, that's what we found to be helpful.
Yeah, some of the kind of... Here, this is shit that we know you should do.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you get rejected. It don't work.
Yep.
You're not that good. Sorry. Let's pop that balloon early.
Yeah, I think that's the...
Don't go in, like... There was something... Okay, last one for me. There was some guy that talked about wearing different hats for each stage of the writing process.
Okay.
And he didn't mix them. But he knew that you needed all three. And one was like, he talked about like being a painter hat. Like, Italian fucking painter hat. Does actually have a name, I don't know what it is. And it's, all
Schmuck, maybe?
All creative process, all the time. And, you can... Nothing interrupts it. You get to write what you want, and blah, 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 blah. Once that hat is off, you put on something... he talked like construction hat, maybe?
Like a hard hat, yeah.
Like a hard... He's like, I got fucking work to do. Like, because dude, just like, it is unrefined, it is messy, it is not organized. Time to clean it.
Yep.
Like, and that's kind of the mentality you should take. It's like, don't, like, if you ever feel that you have an ego and that you're hot shit, you need to get checked.
Yep.
Like, it doesn't, because either you're wrong and you're gonna get bitch slapped by reality and by somebody with a title, or you're being a pretentious jackass.
And nobody will want to work with you.
Yeah, and that. Like, just don't do it. My story time about ego checking.
Nice.
When I was in high school, I did a lot of martial arts. And I actually got to be pretty damn proficient. I will pat myself on the back for that one. And there were some kids from high school who showed up in my adult class. And one guy was just having a good night. Yeah, functionally it's a game. You can run hot. And he was running fucking hot. And the guy running class said, I walked over, he's like, Eli, beat the shit out of him. Like, Tyler thinks Tyler's getting an ego. I can hear it when he talks. Kick the shit out of him. Like, he can't think he's good. That's not allowed. I was like, okay. And I was very deliberate. Like, you don't fucking get an ego here. That's not the purpose. Like, that's so I beat the shit out of him. I like Tyler. He's a nice guy. I beat the shit out of him. Like, and he immediately got that fucking smug smile wiped off his face, and, balance was restored. But, like, I had the same shit happen to me. Like, I kicked a guy and I knocked him out. There's a weird bit of a high that comes with that, strangely enough. And hearing a whole host of people go, oh, shit, is weirdly empowering. And then I, immediately had someone else step in who had 6 inches and 50 pounds on me, and he beat the fuck out of me. It was rough, but, no egos. It's like, you're allowed flashes of brilliance. Do not let that be the norm. No egos.
You reminded me of something, and I don't know if I can remember what it is. Shit. Dana Gould is a stand-up comedian and wrote for The Simpsons and wrote for Parks and Rec. Had this thing that kind of ties into that as as a writer, think of yourself less as an artist and you're more of a draftsman. You are constantly like taking something and doing like a once over, doing it over, doing it over, doing it over. It's not, you are not making a precious snowflake, this, there's like, I don't know about y'all out there, but for us, for Christmas, mom and dad have these gilded like maple leaves.
Yeah.
That is not what you are creating. You are creating something out of putty that can be molded, changed. You are not putting it into the kiln until it is being like, printed, literally printed on a page at a factory.
Yeah.
So it doesn't need to be that way. There's some of the best things in the world that artists have believed needed to be in a script that when removed, like, what was it, in Ghostbusters, the fantastic movie, there is I believe a scene that it was cut. I think it was even filmed because Dan Aykroyd is a fucking weirdo. Great actor, great creator, also weirdo. There's a scene where he gets like blown by a ghost. Like, great artists have dumb ideas, and that's the reason you have editors, that's the reason you have producers, and that's the reason that very rarely there is somebody that's in charge of everything soup to nuts and it doesn't go busts. Like, you having those kind of checkpoints allows for somebody's weird idea that they're sure is right. And there's nothing wrong with being like very assertive and being like, no, this is awesome. But there is a problem with not listening to other people going, ah.
Yeah. You're allowed to stand your ground, and people are allowed to push back. Like, it's highly recommend you do make a point to listen and honestly evaluate their critique. No,
have your opinions. This is one of the things we were talking about, though, is like, save your first draft. Have your first draft for you, and make everything else for the people that either have the money or you believe have good intentions.
Yeah.
And like, because that's who's going to make the movie. And if you want to make it, if you want to write it, make it on your own. Good luck with that. I mean, you're going to end up with The Room, a la Tommy Wiseau, because I believe that is basically what happened. Is he was the creator and benefactor of it, thus the shit show that is The Room.
You're tearing me apart, Lisa.
So don't tear yourself apart, Lisa. Get an editor, get a friend, and listen to him. We'll be back in a bit.
Do you enjoy glorifying serial killers and worshiping crime in all its forms? What? No, of course not. But do you? Don't worry. You're not alone. There are tons of people who get a thrill hearing about the horrible, wacky, and sadistic things that the worst of us will do to one another. And thanks to the forced incarceration of the world during COVID, the desire for true crime documentaries has only ballooned into a social phenomenon rivaled only by the MCU. And whether you want to look at crimes gone wrong, bank robberies gone sideways, or just some of the truly awful and twisted and sadistic things from the minds of Ted Bundy and the like, you can be sure that you'll find someone to narrate it at you in a pace that is just too slow for normal conversation. What are you waiting for? Find your correct criminal today. And we're back.
Hello.
Alright, so, Bromancer, what have you been working on? Right.
So I had this idea, and you touched on it. I didn't want to, kind of double down on the idea in the same week, but last week you mentioned the fantastic Philip DeFranco show, which we both watch relatively religiously. And they had a guy on who was living in the war-torn Ukraine, and it was just talking about how even though there's a war going on, when you're not on the front, and they are not far from the front, as Ukraine's not a big country and Russia's coming in at all sides, but even this area that's getting bombed, he's like, look outside this window, people are just kind of going about their day on a normal day-to-day basis. Yeah. It's just, life is relatively going on as normal. And it got me this idea of, and I don't know if this is one of those, it would be a dark comedy, if it would be, just a light comedy in like a surreal setting, but the idea of having a cafe and just kind of doing a slice of life, or like a circumstance, like a sitcom almost, in a war front cafe where, people are coming in, like World War II get up, kind of like dirty garb, and like ordering a cup of coffee, and it's just this like absurdist, surrealistic circumstance that is sadly all too real, but kind of dialed up, of playing around with people coming in from both sides, chatting, everything being normal, then going outside and like through the pain shooting each other, just stuff like that, to take notice of the like ridiculousness that is the circumstance of war. Because I don't know about you, but it's kind of interesting seeing war in the 21st century, like in Ukraine, seeing the closest thing, I hope, knock on wood, we get to a zombie apocalypse in COVID, and how, as opposed to film where stuff becomes very binary, when war happens, all businesses close, people are ransacking left, right, and center.
Yeah.
The zombie apocalypse, nobody's to be trusted, people being shot on sight, which still happened enough, but it wasn't the norm.
Yeah.
To see that normal still persists even in the apocalyptic is fascinating in so many different directions. I kind of want to, play with that idea. What about you, bro? What you working on these days?
So I finally actually started writing a short story idea, as opposed to just making more of them. Is the idea of like, what if the good guy finally snaps because feels undervalued?
So this is an idea that I think we talked about a while ago, but you're just getting down to writing it now?
Yeah, actually, like, words. Meet Paige. Yeah.
Make kiss. Meow, 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 meow.
Yes. And so it's been kind of fun just making, especially the initial part is showing them at work, quote unquote, as, going and doing vigilante-esque shit in like a kind of gangland setting, right? Where it's like, this is where cops won't show up. This is where crime happens constantly. I can do work here. And, they're trying to hold themselves to a higher standard and, like, not just brutalize people. Because the character is aggressively strong. And, gets pissed because someone shoots her in the tit, so she slaps him and knocks half his teeth out. But,
As
like, is bulletproof, but still, being shot in the tit hurts.
And just so disrespectful.
So now he needs a lot of dental.
Hope you got Blue Shield to cover you from this bomb.
And so, talking about, like, the kind of misconstruction, like, trying to be helpful, police view them as an impediment. People view them as, like, a kind of celebrity to gawk at. And, even things like walking around, if you're going to hide, like, a kind of signature, basically motorbike helmet as their kind of mask and part of their costume, like, well, you can't just fucking walk around with that. And people be like, hey, you're a fucking ghost. Like, I'd recognize that helmet. You're on the news. You're Ghost. Yeah. So, like, okay, I have a backpack. How do you ditch a backpack and not have it stolen?
Yeah.
You hide it in a dumpster. Like, I've been having fun doing a little bit of thought experiment, like how
that's so cool.
Vigilantism would work and how you could do it best. Like, and so the other part of their costume is a reversible jacket, so you can just quick flick it out. So that is where that has gone. I have yet to write them snapping and going crazy, but and I'm not sure what direction I still don't know how I end that. If I have them to try and reconcile or just go full villain, I don't know yet. We'll get there.
That's cool. I'm glad that, like, the idea that you had is getting, to get its time on the page. That's really cool. And that you're getting to do, like, that's one of the things I love doing, is kind of taking a meta approach and troubleshooting the reality that is so often, like, glossed over, especially when they do it in, like, realistic, like, superhero things are becoming, both sides are kind of getting played with, of, like, if its own world and if it was in our world, but very rarely do many of them take time to troubleshoot the reality, especially when placed in like, trying to take, like, a lens of realism to it. Yeah. They don't, like, troubleshoot stuff very frequently. And so that's really cool that you're having fun and doing that, because I think that's one of the things that's unexplored area of that scene.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
kudos, chum.
What you been watching though? What you gotta recommend for the people?
So on my flight back, I ended up watching The Harder They Fall via Netflix. It's a black western predominantly. The cast is almost all African American, which awesome representation. You know, it's also a bit of realism in that like somebody did a dynamic breakdown of the people that formulated the out west culture in like the 1800s, early 1900s. Yeah, turns out despite the Hollywood example, it was predominantly Hispanic and African American, like overwhelmingly so. Even though in like every show you see, there's a shit ton of whiteys, even outside of like the sheriff. There's like it's predominantly white people, which is just not true. Most cowboys were not white, like aggressively so, because I mean it is manual labor. Like what, even back then there was still effectively white privilege, as white people just had more money. Why would you want to go do a job that's harder, that paid less, that had like a very high chance of death? Getting ahead of myself. So this movie has a star-studded cast in up-and-comer Jonathan Majors, Zazie Beetz from Atlanta, Delroy Lindo, Lakeith Stanfield from also Atlanta, Idris Elba as a villain, which is really dope. The music is amazing. You can definitely tell that Jay-Z had a hand in this as a producer. Really great music. Some really great, fun, bantery dialogue. And that's where the good times end. So much of this movie's plot is kind of just makes you, like, at least for me, made me kind of turn my head and raise an eyebrow like The Rock and just go, what the actual fuck? There's a lot of just potential that is underutilized, and yeah, I would, if you're looking for a fun time, I would say go for this. If you're looking for something that makes a statement or does anything with its potential, this is not the film for you.
This is not it.
No, I was not impressed. I had fun with it. The music was dope. There were some great lines, and then there were some really bad ones. And the plot overall was just kind of like, huh? However, if you'd like a fun time, and while this isn't a movie or a story, I have been watching Stavros Halkias's Live at the Lodge Room over and over, because he is the perfect epitome, for me at least, and a great stand-up comedian, and that he's not... There's a lot of stand-up comedians now that are becoming more dignified, or, you know, you're meant to kind of listen to them as they give you knowledge. Which is fine and good. There's plenty of those that I like.
Sure.
Stavros is not that. Stavros is a fat, balding man from Baltimore who is as degenerate as he looks and openly admits it. He mixes the deplorable with the introspective for that full, perfect, the fool, which I mean, ostensibly is where comedy came from. You know, that kind of gestury thing where you see the world for what it is, but also you're, you know, dance monkey dance, so to speak. And he just like rides the line on a unicycle just perfectly. It is so perfect. You get to laugh at the fat man with no feeling of indignity or, you know, kind of better than. I don't know. It's highly recommend. It's on YouTube. It is perfection as far as I'm concerned. What about you, bro? What have your eyes been gazing?
I've been gladly watching and gleefully watching a show called Chainsaw Man, which was very hyped up for this round of seasonal anime, and it fucking delivers. It fucking slaps. It's, if nothing else, you can tell it is such a clear passion project. Like every credit scene has its own animation and song play out. Like that just doesn't happen.
No, each one is different.
Each one is different. Each credit sequence is different.
Wow, that's so cool. Yeah, that is very not anime.
Like, I skipped one, and then I realized the next one is different. I'm like, wait a minute, what now?
Rip.
Yeah, the story is very good. Like, people laud the author because people who worked with him have made really good shit. For example, one of the people who worked with him made Spy X Family.
Nice.
And so it's like, oh shit. But like people who've read it have nothing but good things to say about it, and it does something that makes me very, very happy because I get annoyed with anime and some of its stupid tropes and how like
Yeah.
they just tiptoe around weird sexuality, especially like
Which is funny given the fact
every
that so
anime
much
character
anime
is 17 and they're not looking to bone constantly, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that is wrong. That is
Yeah.
factually incorrect. I know
been
how men
17.
think. I've been there. I've been that fucking horny high schooler. Don't you lie to me. Don't gaslight me, Japan.
Also, it's funny that they do that and then like the most depraved stuff I've seen on screen
Like
is usually
happens on accident. It's just like,
Yeah.
what? Get out of here. They don't. They're just like, this guy wants to fuck. Like, the main character is like this. He's like 17 and he's in a rough life. He's in a rough fucking go of it. And he's like, I want to get laid before I die, because like he just thinks he's gonna die, and he's like, I want to get laid. Like, I'll be clear. Like, he wants to touch some titties. Like, his motivation, because people talk about like these grandiose motivators like revenge or whatnot. He's like, I just want to get to second base. Like, it's like I would have fondle some tits for it, and like people laugh at him for his motivation being stupid. He's like, "Fuck you," and then he cuts him apart. Like, it's excellent. It's excellent. It is.
That's great.
It is absurd. It is bombastic. Like one of the early episodes, he has this disagreement with another demon hunter. Instead of fighting fair, he just hits the guy in the nuts. And he's like, in a fist fight, it's nuts or nothing. And the
dude... He says that?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and then the guy who had just been kicked in the nuts thinks he's, like, not being serious. And so he just boots him in the balls again. He's like, we're fucking serious. He's like, yeah, I said it, didn't I?
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is bonkers. It's great. I'm fully on board.
That's so juice.
It is irreverent as shit. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any song recommendations before we take off?
There is this going from nuts or nothing to the sweetest thing I've ever heard. I don't know if this is pronounced this way, but I pronounce it Dodie. It's D-O-D-I-E. Might be another D in there, but D-O-D-I-E. You can find her on Spotify. She has this song. They have this song called She, which I've been listening pretty nonstop, and it's very tragically beautiful. I think it is kind of like a, what's it called? Like a swan song of sorts. And how I got introduced to them was via YouTube, and they have this demo that I really hope they turn into a song, because I love the demo, called In the Bed. And it is so soothing. I've used it to go to bed many a time. It's very sweet. It's very light. And I would recommend you give it a try. What about you, bro? Anything to...
Nah,
any
I don't
noise
have
for the ears?
any kind of musical wreck this week.
Tisk, tisk.
I know.
Well, perhaps next time you will.
Because that is our episode. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and if you enjoyed it, please feel free to
like,
comment,
share,
and subscribe.
And don't forget, new episodes of Super Pros Bros come out the first and third Saturday of every month.
Bye.